Hi friends, welcome to Bookish Bliss, our virtual book club. Every week we will dig into a section of chapters in our favorite books. Let's get started.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of Bookish Bliss. We have a lot to discuss today.
Yes, this week we are covering chapters 10 through 17 of Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. There will be no spoilers beyond the covered chapters, so you don't have to read the whole book to listen. You just have to be caught up on the chapters we're covering. Amanda, darling, what are you drinking tonight?
Drinking just a LaCroix because I forgot I had no more wine.
Beautiful.
What are you drinking tonight?
I never have wine anymore, so
I know.
I'm drinking a bubbly.
Both of us with our carbonated water tonight.
Yes, our preferred brand sponsor
Literally.
us.
For real.
Here's to another episode of Iron Flame, and cheers to us, episode 41.
Yes, cheers, darling. Now let's get started with the good stuff and break down Iron Flame Part 2. Take it away, Megan.
All right, so we're starting with chapter 10. So, that was a scary first year that just snapped Nadine's neck, thinking she was Violet. But once the shock has worn off, Violet fights the first year and kills him. Xaden is back in the chapter, and we get to have a little catch up with him. So, lots to discuss. Let's just get started.
Yeah, I agree. So the epigraph for chapter 10 is, "It is not unheard of that a candidate enters the Writer's Quadrant having been paid to assassinate a cadet. I'm sorry Mira was targeted, but proud to say she dispatched the threat quickly. You have enemies, General." And this is from an official notice from Commandant Panchak to General Sorengale.
It's crazy that it was already happening, and I'm sure it happened to Brennan as well, but
yeah,
it's just wild to think of because there wasn't even any relic kids,
I know.
rebellion kids in the quadrant when Mira was going through it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because Xaden's is the first class, right?
Yeah. So who would want to be assassinating Mira? I get cadets try to kill each other all the time, but I feel like that's different for them to write an assassination attempt was attempted against Mira, not just normal squad or normal quadrant murders or dying in the quadrant.
Because they weren't first years when she was a third year, right? Because she's been out at least 3 years.
Yeah, they didn't know each other.
Yeah. So that is interesting. She must have had enemies before, I guess.
Yeah, deaths happen all the time. Jack killed a bajillion cadets in the quadrant when he was alive. So maybe that's what they just call it, like an assassination. They were just letting General Sorengale know. So maybe that's the same missive she got when those unbonded attempted to assassinate Violet too. So maybe that's just how they write it.
Yeah. Interesting.
So Violet announces that she is actually the real Violet Sorengale, and the big first year attacks her, and Violet is able to defeat him, plunging a blade into his back. But, I mean, this is just like chaos. So Nadine is dead. Violet says that she's the real Violet. This guy immediately launches himself at her. Yeah. She throws daggers at him, which was like a mistake, and doing everything wrong that Xaden told her not to do, she's doing. And, Dane is even flipping out in the background, obviously. But, I mean, everyone is nervous for her because they can't step in because this first year isn't in her squad. And so Violet has to defend herself, and there's nothing that anybody can do. So... oh, what a way to start the new year.
Yeah, anxiety, literally. So this first year also says to Violet, secrets die with the people who keep them, and got really close to her face. So she could see his eyes were rimmed in red like he was on a drug or something. Interesting.
That is interesting.
But Violet knows that the message in particular was from Colonel Atos, and she believes he sent this first year to assassinate her.
Which is... literally crazy.
It's crazy, but he says the same thing to them at the end of fourth wing, so it's definitely Atos.
No, he says that to them just a couple chapters ago when they're graduating.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true too. That might be actually when they say it, not at the end of fourth wing. Yeah.
Secrets die with the people who keep them. That's so obviously she knows that is coming from Colonel Atos because he just said that to both her and Xaden when he's calling them out on their bullshit. But he can't really call them out on their bullshit.
I bet you the first year was only supposed to say that if he was for sure killing her, so that it was the last thing she heard before she died, and then she doesn't die. So she's like, well, now
Well,
the jig is up.
yeah, she was like, stab, stab, now you're dead.
Yeah, literally.
But so crazy. Did Colonel Atos put him in some sort of trance, or like how did he get him to go and do his bidding that he was so fixated on finding Violet Sorrengail and just killing without hesitation? What was in it for him from Colonel Atos?
I don't fucking know. He wants to keep the secret, I guess.
Well, we know Varish is probably in on this with
yeah.
Atos too, and he hates her we really don't have a reason for why Varish would hate her. So,
well, I think it comes out in this section too with the whole Andarna stuff.
Yeah, but that's not a reason to like hate Violet.
No.
She's definitely a threat to the secrecy of what the government is withholding from people. Anywho, Varish hates her, and that's just going to be an annoying topic throughout this section of chapters.
Yeah.
After Violet kills the first year, the mat challenges resume, and Sloane fights Auric instead of Violet, and she loses, and it is clear that she was not fostered with fighters like Liam was.
Yeah.
In plain terms, she sucks.
And balls to her for even calling out Violet when she knows she sucks at fighting.
Well, I think she also thinks that Violet sucks at fighting before she watches Violet kill this first year. So even though the professor basically says, yeah, even after that display, you're definitely not fighting her, even though he wasn't going to let her fight her anyways, I think Sloane can see that Violet is a worthy opponent now. She's not weak like Imogen had described in her letters.
Yeah.
After classes and dinner, Violet finds Xaden in her room, much to her relief, and she asks him what it was like at Samara. Xaden is having a pretty rough time in Samara, and he has to prove himself all over again at the cruelest outpost that they have. But he thinks it's more his last name rather than the rebellion relic because they are easier on Garrick, and he is glad about that. But there are still some trust issues between them. Xaden's also, looking at Violet's neck after she was attacked, and he's obviously not happy about that. And she's like, you can't go killing cadets anymore. And he's like, watch me. But she already killed this cadet, so there's no one for him to kill.
Yeah. I feel like he probably just saw it and was a realization for him. And he kind of like panicked, like, fuck, I really can't protect her.
Yeah, he's not there. Liam's gone. And Imogen and Bodhi are around, but everyone's busy. But Xaden and Violet are still not back together. They are still having some trust issues.
Some trust issues for sure. So we learn here during their little discussion that Xaden warded Violet's room. So only Violet, Xaden, and whoever she physically pulls through can enter. So she has to grab their hand and pull them through.
Yeah. Violet refuses to sleep with Xaden again until he decides to fully be transparent with her rather than giving her what he deems as enough of the truth. I'm already annoyed of this fight, and it's only happened 3 times so far.
Yeah.
It's just so annoying. Like when she's doing the exact same thing to her friends.
I know.
Which is also annoying throughout this set of chapters.
I hate that we have to lie to Rhiannon. She literally knows something is up. But she's so patient, and she's like, well, she'll tell me when she's ready. So she's a good friend, but
Violet
just annoying.
Sucks.
So Violet is struggling to see the first years die. But Xaden explains that the first year is when some lose their lives. The second year is when the rest of them lose their humanity. And it's all part of the process of turning them into effective weapons. They are literally desensitizing them to death here, which is just how fucking cruel Biscayev is.
Well, we did know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Xaden was surprised that Violet went on the parapet on the first day. And she's like, I had to. I told Liam that I would be there for Sloane. So, of course, that's where I was going to be to make sure she made it across.
Of course.
Xaden shows Violet that he is going to let her in as much as he can by writing Violet a letter.
Aww.
And Xaden hands it to her, and he heads for Samara, where they will reunite in another 7 days. But I think he's also going to run like another mission that she wants to go be a part of. And he's like, you literally almost died today.
Yeah.
You also cannot be a part of this until you're shielding better. So sit down.
Go to your room.
Stay in your room.
Yeah, literally.
So
I
like,
love
fine,
that
go.
the letters are part of the epigraphs, though, going forward. It's so fun.
I know.
I wish we could see the whole letters, but it is nice to get little bits and pieces.
Little bits and pieces of Xaden. Since he's missing a majority of this chapter, I'm pretty sure this is one of the only, there's one more time we see him in this sets of chapters. So he was dearly missed throughout.
We know
this
that
section.
leadership was trying to fucking keep them separate, and it's working, which is annoying.
Yeah.
But hopefully not for the entire book.
I will stab someone. Chapter 11. Lots of new developments during this chapter. We get to see General Varish being an absolute nightmare. He is way too interested in Andarna, and he searches Violet's bag before she heads off to Samara. He is already on my last nerve.
Me too, this motherfucker. Ugh.
Hate him.
Hate him. So the epigraph for chapter 11 is, Garrick has always been my best friend. His father was my father's aide, which in a way makes him my Dane, except trustworthy. After Liam, Bodhi was and still is the closest thing I have to a brother, perpetually tagging along a step behind. Recovered correspondence of Lieutenant Xaden Ryerson to Cadet Violet Sorrengail.
Who found these letters that it's recovered?
I know.
Does that scare you?
Yes.
Yeah, it is actually really scary.
It's scary because, well, we know that they look at every letter, but do they make copies of every letter, or are like they finding these letters?
I doubt that they're making copies of them, but maybe they are when it comes to those two.
Yeah.
Violet and Imogen finish a post-run cooldown, entering the courtyard a half hour before breakfast. Violet is still glowing from the letter Xaden wrote her, so clearly she's not all that mad at him still.
No.
Violet is questioning whether or not she and Imogen are truly friends, which I think at this point they are definitely not just allies. I would say that they're friends. They're running together every day.
Yeah, I would say they're friends too.
Yeah, after what they went through, I think
I was gonna say
trauma bonded them together.
Yes, I was literally gonna say the same exact thing. They're trauma bonded.
Yeah. Violet is surprised to see Jasenia out of the archives. Scribes almost never enter the Riders Quadrant unless they are assisting Captain Fitzgibbons. She comes for 2 reasons, and she didn't want Violet to have to wait for her to be on archive duty.
Yeah, so the first reason was to give Violet a copy of The Gift of the First Six, since she requested an early accounting of the first Riders. And this was actually the earliest that was allowed to leave the archives. And the second thing that she was here for was to get help translating Old Lucerish, a dead language that Violet can read.
She's such a smarty.
Interesting information.
That's great information to have.
Of course she can fucking read Old Lucerish.
Of course she can. Yeah, obviously. Duh.
Yeah. So Jasenia is needing to translate the name of an ancient king who lived 1,000 years before Navarre existed. It's hand copied from an original, but it looks hundreds of years old. So we know, obviously, we have our doubts about the history here. So it being a copy is annoying already, but I guess we're not going to ever find anything besides the unification scroll that was before.
Yeah, not even in the archives. Like maybe they exist somewhere. Maybe they're at like the palace or somewhere hidden.
Yeah, hidden.
But you know, they're not going to be in the archives where you would think they would be. They are definitely not. But this from the king, even though it's translated from 1,000 years to like hundreds of years old, so maybe it's a little bit closer to the truth than something that would be written today. But
yeah, I was gonna say too, I'm sure there was a need because languages do develop and modernize anyway as the years go on, so I'm sure there was a need to translate, but we know that they're doing more than just translating. So
yeah,
Jasenia tells Violet that they are working on translating all the books with the dead languages and removing them from the archives, which is even more fishy to me because now all of a sudden, they're going to change all these dead languages. What is in there that we need?
Right, exactly.
Before they translate it out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we are trusting Jacinia at this point since she is helping us that
Yeah.
anything she is translating is being translated correctly, but we can't trust any of the other scribes.
Yeah, exactly. So a second year from Third Wing is dragged between two older riders, followed by Professor Markham, and Jacinia thinks that this is her fault. That specific rider requested a book, and she recorded the request as she is required to do, but she wouldn't tell Violet what the book was, and she looked fucking scared and ran off before Violet could even ask a second time. So
Yeah, obviously that is concerning when she looks up to see someone that she assisted and then
yeah,
reported she assisted, and now they're being dragged off, especially with Violet asking for all these specific books. She knows what's up. Obviously, Violet is not telling her what's going
something.
on,
Yeah,
but she's not stupid. She knows
yeah.
something fishy and scary is going on. And now with this added on top of everything that's already happening, yeah, I would be scared too if I was her.
Yeah, I agree. And she's not used to seeing that either. It's not like they're desensitized to death in the archives.
Right, yeah, she's just staring
So,
at dusty books all day.
yeah, exactly. So I'm sure it was frightening even for her own life to be like, I gotta get out of here before that's me or something.
Well, yeah, because she recorded it, so she's, am
Yeah.
I gonna get in trouble too? Am I
Yeah.
gonna get dragged away?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, poor Jacinia.
Oh, poor thing.
So later, Rhiannon meets up with Violet and asks if Violet and Xaden are together. Violet says that they are not because Xaden won't tell her the full truth. Violet also tells Rhiannon that her letters that she has been receiving are redacted.
Yes. So Violet gets a letter from Mira and she's been reassigned to Athbine, but thick black lines cover the rest of the letter. So someone has censored it and it's been redacted, which means someone read it too. It was unsealed. So all these points point to somebody is reading it.
Yeah.
Violet is thinking that it could have been Varish, Melgreen, or Atos in this instance. So
I don't think Melgreen's reading her letters. I think he
No.
has way too many henchmen to be reading Mira's letters to Violet, but definitely, I think it was probably Varish. If I had
because Atos is already gone at this point, too.
yeah, it's Varish or, their henchmen that are like reading it and redacting things and reporting back to those awful human beings.
Exactly, yeah. So Riddick starts inquiring about another black dragon in the Vale. A few dragons saw Endarna before she entered the caves for the dreamless sleep. But Violet is being told by Taryn, just lie till you die. So Violet just says, maybe it's Taryn, but Kaori thinks it's a new dragon, and Riddick asks Violet to check with Taryn. She's in a bit of a pickle here.
She is in a bit of a pickle. She keeps weaving and webbing these lies, and sooner or later, it's all going to catch up with her. But Carrie's not stupid. He's literally obsessed with dragons and
he wrote the book on
recording
the
them.
kind.
Yeah. So if he thinks there's a new black dragon, then he knows that it's a new black dragon.
Yeah.
It's not just Taryn.
I'm surprised, though, Riddick just dropped it. He's like, yeah, ask Taryn, Violet. She could do that right in front of you right now and find out. And he doesn't say anything. She's like, yeah, okay, well.
Yeah.
But you can. Like, why aren't you? That's what I would say. I'd be like, yeah, I mean right now.
Yeah. Riddick is just so silly.
Yeah.
Because I think they're just like curious, but it's not like a need to know. It's just like a curious, I want to know this information. So maybe that's why he's not pressing it. But I mean, it's Riddick at the end of the day. I don't know. He's so goofy.
He's just like, ooh, look what I found out.
Yeah.
Or,
I have the goss.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Violet is shitting her pants.
Yeah.
So later, General Varish confronts Violet, asking her to see Endarna.
Yeah. So Varish is too interested in Feathertails for Violet's liking. Even though she can't bear a rider, Varish orders Violet to have Endarna fly next week. Even though dragons don't take orders from humans, he will expect Violet to follow his orders. Varish also recalls Colonel Atos telling him that Violet's father was writing a book on Feathertails, even though they haven't been seen in hundreds of years. And Violet happens to bond one. So Violet is saying it's just a coincidence. And she asked Taryn to confirm. He says he knows nothing of her father's research, but Endarna, She stays silent.
Yeah, because she has been kind of perking up here and there, even though she's supposed to be in the dreamless sleep. But it makes it seem like from Taryn that she's actually like in her deep sleep now. So I think
Yeah.
maybe that's why she's not really
Or do you think
popping
it's
up.
because she does know something about his research and doesn't want to say?
That could also be true. Who knows?
I think it's also confirming here that Varish and Colonel Atos are in cahoots because
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
he's literally saying he heard this from Colonel Atos. So why would they be talking about this
Yeah.
if they weren't plotting and scheming?
They're plotting. I don't even know how Violet or Taryn or anyone that knows that Indarna is now fully grown, how they're going to get away with them never finding out that Feathertails are basically baby dragons.
I know.
Because obviously when Indarna eventually shows up, she's going to be massive and they're all going to know. So I just don't understand why they're not even... Well, it doesn't even seem like they have a plan.
Yeah.
Except avoid.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they thought they had more time because she wasn't supposed to grow that fast. And they were thinking maybe it was because of the time travel or everyone was saying we've never seen a rapid growth like this.
Yeah,
so
but eventually she wasn't going to be a Feathertail anymore. And they were going to find out that Feathertail are baby dragons.
But I'm saying she's only in Biscaya 3 years. So is it normal for a Feathertail to be a Feathertail for 3 years and then you never have to worry about it because she'll be out in battle? You know what I mean?
I guess, but people out in battle are going to see that Indarna is now fully grown and they're going to report back to everybody and their mother. So,
for sure.
I just don't get why we're like, we need to hide this information. It's going to come out.
Yeah. It must mean something. Like, it has to be important, this research, for them to not be fucking talking about it or but them wanting it, the other side. I don't know. I need to know what this fucking research is about.
This is just messy.
I know. But also, Violet says in Fourth Wing she knows where this research is.
Yeah.
So knowing who Violet is and her need for this full disclosure, you bond a Feathertail and you don't
go and look at the information.
Yeah. So I'm just like, what
is that a plot hole?
I don't know if she thinks she's going to get way more accurate information actually from a Feathertail or if she just does not think it's important for some reason. Because they've never seen Feathertails in hundreds of years. So she's probably like, what really could my dad have known about Feathertails?
I mean, after the book of him making her memorize the folklore, I would say that he probably knew a lot of information, Violet, and you probably should get on that.
Yeah. I just don't know why she's not, but I don't know. I'm trying to figure out any kind of explanation that I can at this point, but I agree. I think, like, why hasn't she looked at it yet?
Yeah. It just all, the whole Indarna Feathertail hiding this is just messy to me. And you know, and why aren't we thinking about what we're going to be saying once, you know, Indarna shows up?
Yeah.
Whatever. Violet says that Indarna cannot bear a rider, but that she will go through maneuvers on easier days. Varys demands that Indarna fly with Violet next week. So he's like, I don't give a shit. She's coming next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Third years are joining the flight lessons today as they demonstrate a running landing. But Violet is thinking this maneuver is pointless in the kind of war that they need to fight because she just watched Soleil run to her dragon during the whole battle with the Venin. So she's thinking, what the fuck do we need to learn how to jump off of our dragons for? That's stupid.
Yeah, we need to learn how to jump back on in a quicker time.
Yeah. But one interesting thing I did find was that she's assuming Kaori doesn't know what's out there because if he did, he would be teaching them faster ways to get off of the ground instead of landing on it. So I think we could put a little check that Kaori at least is not evil and hiding a secret.
Yeah, I don't think Kaori ever gave me evil vibes or that he's keeping a secret from them because he has spent a majority of his career at the college based on his signet. So he only did that mandatory required time and then went back to the school. So he probably doesn't know because he probably has never even saw anything weird out in the field.
But I'm sure Violet thinking one thing her whole entire life and then this curveball being thrown at her with the Venin, I'm sure she's thinking everyone probably knows and is keeping it a secret. And she's trying to figure out, maybe you're not the one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like she's not only figuring this out, but also it lets us in on the investigation too. So which makes me think, who else knows about the Venin and who doesn't?
Well, Professor Markham definitely does
Yeah.
I think
I feel like you can't be curator of the scribes and not know,
oh,
since
for
it was
sure.
erased from the
Yeah.
archives, basically. So I agree there. And
Yeah.
Varish, I
Varsh
think.
knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Devara knows.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
She teaches battle brief, yeah.
Yeah, with Markham.
Yeah, she's definitely knows for sure.
Yeah. We'll see.
I guess it's kind of odd that Kaori doesn't know because literally everybody else does.
Seems to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless he does know and he's just very good at just following the rules.
True.
But,
Yeah. But I
yes.
think it makes sense what you said about him being mostly at the school anyway. So it's not like they had to fill him in.
Yeah.
They didn't have to be like, by the way, this is actually going on, but we're going to lie about it. No, I'm sure the less people they had to tell, the better.
Yeah, for sure. The less people
Yeah.
that know, the better, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they definitely need some different training because they're not going to be, landing on the ground to be fighting griffins, which they might be, but they need to be learning how to get back on their dragons after helping people to escape the venom.
Yeah. Well, Soleil died that way because the venom literally sucked the life out of the ground around her. So
yeah, they need to learn how
they
to
will not survive.
jump higher.
Yeah.
There's going to be reasons why they have to get off their dragons. So they
Yeah.
definitely need to be learning how to box jump or, sprint faster.
Yeah.
Catapult.
Well, especially because right now the only way they can kill a venom is to hit it with a dagger. So you have to get close enough.
Yeah, you have to be basically in hand-to-hand combat with them.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Wild.
So after this, Bodhi asks Violet to tell Xaden that they are working on the next shipment, but he won't tell her what this shipment is. Bodhi accidentally tells Violet about Xaden's ex-girlfriend, Catriona, and there have been more assassination attacks on the marked ones. It's the second time someone has tried to jump Bodhi in the bathing chambers, and Imogen and Aya were attacked today too, coming out of a briefing for third years. So lots going on, lots of information just dumped on Violet in 2.5 seconds. So
literally,
like, why did we need to know about Xaden's ex-girlfriend? So stupid. Like, sometimes I feel like Bodhi is something's up with him.
Yeah, he just talks out loud, and Violet's like, "What?"
What?
He just says whatever he's thinking instead of thinking before he says.
Yeah, thinking before he speaks.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that, the other marked ones are being attacked as well. So there's all these
searched.
Yeah. All these assassination attempts going on.
Wild. So
crazy.
Because of these assassination attempts, and they're all being searched, they also suspect that leadership would search Violet before her and Taryn left to see Xaden and Sigale.
Mm-hmm.
Varish does have her bag searched, but they find nothing. And she is happy she left the book of the first 6 back in her room, so there's not even a question about why she has this ancient book. Luckily, they don't search Taryn, who is carrying 2 packs, twice the size of Violet's. So she automatically knows in this moment they're carrying weapons.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting we find out here that Bodhi's signet power is fire wielding from a patch on his uniform.
Why did I think he had a different
Yeah, that's so basic for him. I'm like,
yeah, boring.
Boring, Bodhi.
Boring, Bodhi. Not living up to your family legacy.
Literally.
Violet then flies with Taryn to go see Xaden in Samara. Chapter 12. We get to see Xaden!
Yay!
And they even make out, but Xaden wants LOVE coming out of her mouth before he'll let her again. Oh, frustrating. But Samara sucks, and now neither of them are getting laid because Violet is stubborn. Joy, let's continue.
Literally, stubborn. So the epigraph for chapter 12 is, Sigale watched me kill another cadet for bullying Garrick during threshing. She says she chose me for my ruthlessness, but I think I just remind her of my grandfather. Recovered correspondence of Lieutenant Xaden Ryerson to Cadet Violet Sorengale. So this is actually the first time we find out that the relative that was once bonded to Sigale is Xaden's grandfather.
Yes.
Interessante.
Crazy. Relative is, I don't know. When you think relative, it could be like anybody.
Yeah, for sure. So everything about Samara is severe, including the landscape and the command that runs it. They are high in the Espen Mountains, and the nearest village is a half-hour flight. There's not even a trading post within walking distance. It's known to be brutal as a first assignment. So Violet, of course, has her shields up when she gets there.
Yay, Samara.
Violet actually can feel the wards as they are stronger here than at Montserrat. Since her signet power has also fully manifested, she is more sensitive to them now.
Hmm.
So there's a hum in her veins, like she can feel a hum, which must be an interesting
Interesting.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Taryn is acting a little overprotective here, but within reason, since there is a drift of Griffin just on the other side of this mountain, a mile beyond the border. So Violet is not safe until she's behind the walls or with the wing leader.
Oh, I love Taryn.
I know, I love him.
When Violet first gets in there, she goes to Zayden's room, but alas, he is not there. So Violet finds Zayden sparring with another rider in what looks to be like a storage pit. He is fighting a man named Jarrett for a lieutenant's pass for the weekend so that he can spend more time with Violet, which is wild that they were going to keep them apart this weekend if he didn't win this pass.
Yeah.
Zayden takes a punch when he notices Violet. She was early and he was surprised. He had used his shields to concentrate on the fight so he didn't feel her. Zayden obviously wins the fight, and I love when Violet tells him to stop playing with the guy and end the fight already.
Literally. You would think any other girlfriend, I know they're not together right now, but basically girlfriend, sees their boyfriend in a pit fighting someone, they would be like anxious. And she's like, oh, stop playing with him and just end it already. Come on.
Yeah, stop toying with your food and get up here.
Yeah. So we learned that Zayden actually has his own private bathing chambers, but it's because no one wants to share space with Fen Ryerson's son. Garrick, though, has to share with 4 riders, so he's choosing to see it as a positive, which I would too.
Me too. I got my own room and space. Thank goodness.
Literally. So Zayden and Garrick were searched along with every other lieutenant leaving Basquiat with the rebellion relic, but they did not search Sigale. So Violet thinks they know they're smuggling something out. But Zayden's like, nah, they only suspect it. They don't really know.
No, they just think, but they don't know.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. Sigale would never let them get near them.
They would die easily, which is why they're not checking the dragons.
Yeah. Taryn would chop Varish's head off before they touched him.
Yeah. But I also think, too, I don't think they think the dragons are keeping secrets among themselves. Because if something was going up, I feel like they are just assuming their dragon would fill them in. You know?
Yeah, that's very true. So when they are alone, they kiss and things heat up. And I'm like, oh, finally. But Zayden chooses not to sleep with her, however, because he refuses to use sex as a tool to get her back. I mean, it probably would work a lot faster, Zayden.
Literally.
If there was a little bit more intimacy there. But whatever. Zayden wants to hear that Violet loves him before sleeping with her again, which I'm glad he's changing for the better, but come on, give the readers what they want, which is...
Now he's toying with Violet. First it's the guy he's fighting with, now it's Violet.
Yeah, but he is determined to do things differently than he did in the past year, which I guess good for you, Zayden. Good for you.
We always like to see the growth, but
we like
maybe
to
a
see
little
the
quicker
growth.
Could be nice.
But I think if she was getting that intimacy, it doesn't have to be sex, and I guess they did make out for a little bit, but I think if they had, when you're just in that cute, cuddly, intimate moment with someone, your guards drop a little bit, and I think you become a little bit more mushy towards the person that you're like having this intimacy with.
Yeah, kind of like when she reads the letter
right,
wrote her.
Yeah, so I think, a little bit more kissing and hand-holding isn't going to hurt here, Zayden, and I could have used a little bit more of that before he's like, no, I need you to tell me that you love me before we do anything else. Like, dude, relax. She does love you.
But also, I think he's forgetting how big the secrets were that he kept from her, and he's trying for her to, like, get over it way quicker than any girl in the history of girls would ever.
Well, yeah, I guess they don't really have time for that because there's lots going on.
No, So Violet actually gets a closer look at the daggers that kill Venom. The gray medallion and the matte black hilt that's decorated with a rune is the alloy. It's capable of holding power, and the wards originate from the veil but only reach so far. So the medallions hold extra power to boost the wards and extend them. And there's an entire armory downstairs boosting the wards of the post. So that's how they get the wards to extend.
Mm-hmm.
The details are classified, but that's why the outposts are placed strategically to keep the borders from developing weak points.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But the wards can still falter because they can only hold so much power. Once it's used, it has to be imbued again, and imbuing is a process of leaving power in an object. A rider has to put their own power into it, which is a skill that a lot of them do not have. I wonder why the fucking wards are faltering.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a fucking skill you should be teaching as Gaia.
Or is it just like they can't do it? Or can everyone do it and they're just not teaching them the skill? Or is it like only, is it like a signet power?
I'm sure they probably pick the more powerful people to do it because you probably have to imbue them less. But I think from just reading that, it's something that can be taught to all riders.
Well, that's just too much knowledge for people to have, people that they don't trust.
Exactly, yeah. So Violet actually asks if the ally has always been placed in the daggers, and Xaden says no. It started right before the rebellion.
Interesting.
I wonder why. He assumes Melgreen had a vision of an upcoming battle, and these were vital to his victory. And as soon as Sigale chose Xaden at Threshing, they started to smuggle daggers out and supply drifts that they could make friendly contact with. So this literally started 3 years ago.
Yeah, crazy.
His dad would be so proud.
So proud. But Xaden refuses to go deeper into the subject, insisting that they work on Violet shields instead of worrying about Navarre shields. Despite being tired, Violet agrees because obviously this is super important as she knows way too much. And that class that they just added on where they're going to get interrogated God knows when, she's going to need some good shields.
Yeah, for sure. More than Dane. I think she's worried more about RSE than Dane at this point.
But. Literally, in Varish.
Yeah.
Chapter 13. Sloane is not very good at fighting. She clearly has not trained like Liam had been. She's also super stubborn, even though she needs the help. She kind of sounds a lot like Violet, who is stuck in her ways.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, at the end of the chapter, our group gets kidnapped. How exciting!
So exciting. And I was very anxious the first time I read that.
Yeah.
So the epigraph for chapter 13 is, though the chain of command may be consulted, the final say in any academic punishment or repercussion lies with the commandant's office. And this is from Article 5, Section 7 of the Dragon Riders Codex.
Interessante.
Interessante indeed. So at the beginning of this chapter, Violet asks Taryn if he's holding back any secret dragon knowledge about raising wards. And he says, well, I'm always holding back secret dragon knowledge, but not about the wards.
There's a lot I know that you don't.
Yeah.
So they get back to Basgiath, and Varish is basically waiting for her. And, they haven't seen Indarna. She hasn't showed up. So Violet is now receiving her punishment for Indarna missing flight maneuvers, and Varish is making her wield lightning over and over again. Carr is there to keep tabs, basically.
Wild. So Violet strikes a total of 41 times before she reaches burnout. This punishment is brutal, and there is no care for aim, mastery, strength, nothing. They just literally want to wear her down.
Yeah. Bruggen and Solus stood back as far as possible after they scurried away from Taryn, who lunged for their necks, snapped, and pulled back within inches to spare around strike 13. So Taryn is not happy. Even I think Indarna wakes up during this because Violet is nearing burnout.
Yeah. Well, 41 times. She's never sent that much lightning into the sky at one time before, so.
Yeah, even Professor Carr is like, this needs to stop. You're gonna kill her. Literally, Xaden and Violet are super important to this war, and you're gonna kill all of them? For what?
Yeah, for your own vendetta?
Yeah,
crazy.
But Varish is just, he's set in his ways, and he has whatever his mission is, and he's not letting up, even with Professor Carr and Taryn flipping out, basically.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Taryn is not letting it go easily because he knows that he's bound by the Empyrean. So Violet does have to follow the rule of the quadrant or risk the brig, but he's like, fuck that, I can still fuck up your dragon, so you better stay far away from me.
Yeah, and if I kill your dragon, you're dead.
Exactly. So Varish tries to give her an out here and says during all of this that all she would have to do is strike 3 more times if Indarna comes and says hello to them right now. And he doesn't want to submit her for testing or anything. He just wants her to understand that she is not above the structure of command. But Violet's choosing to keep striking and protect the Feathertails in the Vale. Good choice, Violet, even though it sucks.
Yeah.
Varish says this is the only warning that she will get. And after she's done striking, Taryn scoops her up and brings her to the river. Her entire body needs to cool down, and she feels like her bones are on fire. Bodhi's dragon tells him that Violet needs food. Aya agrees and says a green would know, so Bodhi has a green dragon.
Yep.
Did we already know that? We might have already known that, but
I don't know if we knew that.
A little reminder there if we did.
Yeah. Taryn tells Violet to tell the humans that he will handle the dragon matters, and when she asks how, he just says to trust him.
Yeah. And Violet is worried that if Indarna doesn't show, his next punishment will actually kill her. So,
which is, at this rate, a very real, scary possibility.
Yeah, and she's going to defend Indarna and the Feathertails, so she's like, fuck it, I'll die.
Yeah, I think we need to start gathering other dragons that want to protect these Feathertails to, like, I don't know, maybe protect Violet.
Yeah.
And why isn't their dragons that are up there watching this happen trying to protect Indarna? That's what I just don't understand. I guess this is just showing that there's a big divide in the dragons.
Yeah.
Or why won't, Solace just tell Varish about Feathertails? Isn't it just weird? If you really think about it, obviously Solace is a nutcase, a fucking nutso orange dragon. Like, why?
I feel like they work together, but there is, like Taryn says to Violet, he is bound by the Empyrean and the humans have their own chain of command. So this is literally how they get to each other, through the bond. So they're punishing Violet for the bond that they have for her because the dragon won't show. But they can't punish the dragon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the only way they can get to each other because she falls in the chain of command of the humans, not the dragons. So even though the dragons are like, fuck you, she's still a human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like there is a divide in the dragons, but also the humans have their own government system or whatever that they have to abide by too. Chain of command.
The dragon should just murder Varish and bite his head off.
Yeah, no, I think for sure the dragons should just overrule, but at the end of the day, we know they need the humans to actually weave the wards because they have fucking fingers.
Yeah, but Varish is a bad egg, so he can go.
No, I agree. Yeah. He gotta go.
He gotta go. So later at a practice session, Violet and Imogen attend the first year sparring session to watch over Sloane. Violet tells Imogen that there has been no running landing practice for Violet as Taryn won't let her out of the saddle. And Imogen calls Violet a little rebel since she isn't completing class maneuvers and refusing to bring Indarna to class.
This is where their friendship blossoms.
Literally, by Violet being a little, like,
a rebel.
A rebel.
Yeah.
Imogen's like, I love you now.
Yeah.
Violet is still distancing herself from her friends, and she feels that they will be safer that way, so she won't budge. Even though Imogen is pushing her towards keeping her relationships with Rhiannon and Riddick Sawyer, safe and content, Violet is just not having it because she doesn't want to lie to them, and their safety is more important to her than her keeping their friendship, I guess.
Yeah, like they need to know what they're up against for when they go to battle.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's a real hard internal struggle right now to not tell them.
It's just so wild, like, why she felt she was entitled to the information from Xaden, but she doesn't feel
but her
like
friends aren't.
But her friends aren't. Like, why are you entitled to that information and they aren't? And I think this is where my just like battle with Violet is like, stop holding a grudge against Xaden because you're doing the exact same thing. Like, if you weren't doing the exact same thing, then it's different. Then you can hold your grudge all you want.
Yeah, they didn't tell you to protect you, and you're not telling your friends to protect them. So
right, stupid. So they're watching this first year spar angrily with Sloane, and this guy is the brother of the rider who was hauled away in the quadrant the other day by this.
Yeah, that Justinia and Violet saw.
That Justinia and Violet saw, and now Violet learns has been killed. So the brother is obviously grieving that his brother is dead and taking it out on Sloane on the mat, but also wild that he was killed after being hauled away.
He was like beaten to death in his room or
Room.
something, like fucked up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's so crazy. And no one is being punished for this, even though he was in his room. I feel like that's, one
Yeah, you're
place.
not supposed to kill people when they're sleeping. It's part of the Dragon's Codex.
Right. So there's no punishments being handed out. There's this big secrecy about why he was killed. He was seen being dragged away the other day. Clearly something is up. And maybe the brother knows some things because, this guy was asking for information clearly that he shouldn't be having.
Yeah.
And I would think that his brother probably knows. And so he's angrily taking out his frustrations on Sloane right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think this intrigues Violet too. She wants to know what the fuck he asked for in the archives now, even more. Because she's like, damn, he's dead.
Yeah.
What the fuck did he die for?
Right. Yeah.
So Sloane, we know, is getting her ass handed to her.
Yes.
And Arik mentions that he thought all the marked ones were trained to fight, but Imogen said it depended upon where they were fostered. And after Xaden started to climb the ranks, some families stopped training them, according to what some first years are saying. So they were like, oh, you think you're gonna come into this guy and actually lead? Nah, we're not teaching you how to fight. You'll die.
Literally crazy. Well, because they thought that, by sending them into the quadrant, they were going to die anyways. And then Xaden started climbing. But I mean, why even train them in the first place? That's what's so interesting. I mean, I guess Xaden probably would have gone out of his way anyways to train with Liam and whoever was around him. And I guess they could punish them for it, but he would have kept doing it anyways.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they were teaching these rebellion kids to
fight. I like to think, though, that there was families out there that were like, it's not these kids' faults that their parents did this. They should have a chance to survive. And that's maybe why they were training them. They probably disagreed that the kids would have to be blamed anyway, but
yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking anyway. I'm hoping that they're not all fucking shitty people in Navarre.
Well, I mean, I hope not, but
now
they're being shitty because now they're like, oh, now we're not gonna train them anymore. We don't need them rising in the ranks. But it's like you never prohibited that. You just said that they had to survive and fight, as riders, and that's what they're doing. You never said that they couldn't climb the ranks.
No.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So later, Violet and Rhiannon walk to a physics quiz, and Rhiannon asks her if everything is okay. Basically, she's like, I know something's up. There's something wrong with you. I'm not buying your bullshit anymore. But the conversation is cut short because a bag is thrown over both of their heads.
Crazy.
So moving on
It's time.
It is time. Chapter 14. Well, our group wasn't being assassinated, thank God. They have their first land navigation during RSC. The riders and the infantry do not work well together, and they have an awful run-in with our second least favorite orange dragon because I have now moved Bade to second because Solace is now first.
Yeah, Solace is fucking creepy with his one eye too. I'm like,
he's definitely crazier too.
Yeah, psycho. So the epigraph for chapter 14 is, there is a natural distrust that must be overcome between infantry cadets and riders. This exists mainly because riders will never trust that infantry has the courage to hold the line when dragons arrive. And infantry will never trust that the dragons won't eat them. And this is from Major Offender's Guide to the Riders Quadrant, the unauthorized edition.
It's really true.
Yeah, it literally is.
So the gang has been kidnapped for their first joint land navigation exercise led by Professor Grady. Our squad, Ree, Vi, and Riddick, and Sawyer, and 4 second years from Second Wing, Flame Squad, Second Squad, were brought to a forest with nothing but trees in sight. But at least it was an assassination attempt.
Yeah. So she's thinking, phew, I'm not dying here at least. But
yeah.
They're going to go through some shit.
Yeah.
They're each given some water, but Violet notices that there's an earthy taste to it. And suddenly Violet is completely blocked out from her dragons, and they actually all are. Mm-hmm. Professor Grady welcomes them to their first joint land exercise. They've been taught to read a map, and now they will put their skills to work. The team consists of riders, infantry, and a scribe to record the event, and of course healers, just in case anybody needs some healing. The objective is to find the location marked on the maps and secure it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Once they do, they will be extracted from the exercise. But the trick is there are 2 maps and 2 teams, but they're supposed to act as one cohesive unit. Keeping Navarre safe requires teamwork. They have to learn to trust and work together because they will need each other out in the field to survive.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little explanation of the earthy water from Professor Grady here. He tells us that it's a mixture of herbs that dulls not only the connection to the dragons, but their signet powers as well. And he also explains that there are two groups out there on the far side of the forest. So while your dragons are hunting them, their dragons will be hunting you, he says to them.
Whoa, that
Scary.
makes it even scarier.
And to top it off, that's not even all. There are a few unbonded dragons that are like, I'm down to play.
Yeah, they're bored. I would want to
Yeah.
play too. I'm like, I'm coming.
Yeah.
Don't leave me behind.
So the riders will have to lean on infantry as they are actually the more experienced with land nav.
Mm-hmm.
But infantry will now need the riders to survive the dragons. So this is a good exercise for them to work together.
Yes, and we also find out from the scribe, she tells them that she is the first in her year and that they are all the best in the quadrants as well. So they are the team to beat for this exercise, which, question, so this scribe is saying that she's the first in her year as a second year, but shouldn't that be Jasenia then? Well, we know that Jasenia's on a different path towards the archive, so maybe that's why she's not out there. But I just wanted to point that out.
No. I think that makes sense. She might be first in her year as the scribe that goes out in the field.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas Jasenia would be the first in her year as the archives path scribe. Yeah.
So the maps were not that helpful and they are very vague. So it took 2 hours of arguing with infantry to come up with the plan.
Yes. We learn an interesting fact about infantry here, and they organize similarly to the Riders Quadrant. So they have sections, and their equivalent to a wing leader is a battalion commander. I like that much better than a wing leader. Battalion commander.
I know, it sounds so strong.
Yeah. They probably have to make them feel better because, infantry dies off at a way faster rate once they go out of the field. So
literally. So this group cannot get along. Neither the riders or the infantry want to give up control to work together to find their way to a successful mission. They just can't do it. They cannot trust the infantry that they can navigate the land. And infantry's like, you guys fucking suck. This is what we do all the time. You never have done this before. Let us take control. And Riddick's like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
We finally figure out they're getting nowhere because they fucking gave them 2 different maps. But before they can make a new plan, Bade shows up. Jack fucking Marlowe's dragon.
Our second least favorite orange dragon.
Dun dun dun. So Violet tells them, of course, that orange dragons are the most unpredictable and to keep their eyes down and do not fucking run. She will kill them if they run or show any fear. Yeah.
So Rhiannon tells the second wing to cover the infantry where they are, and the group is wondering how pissed Bade still is at Violet for killing her rider. Literally, Bade snapped her jaw right in front of Violet's face. So she's still pretty pissed.
She's fucking pissed. And, Violet is shitting her pants when she starts spewing out facts.
Yeah.
So we learn here from her that the northern Epsons are believed to have been the hatching grounds of the orange dragon before unification. True to their unpredictable nature, they often choose new valleys in the same range. So, interesting.
Yeah, it's like they don't like to stay put.
No.
So 2 of the infantry members take off. Brissa, I think, takes off, and Tomas runs after her.
Yeah.
And basically, Bade's like, and literally blows fire out of her mouth at them. And so as Bade's fire comes out, Violet says she hasn't known fear like this since before Taryn and before she manifested her signet, which is really interesting because literally Solace blew fire at them just like a couple weeks ago, like on the first day. So I'm not sure why, like, she's saying she hasn't known fear, like maybe because she isn't connected.
I was gonna say, or her signet. She literally has no power, no connection to Taryn to come and save her or let him in on what's going on. So I feel like that's what it is more than him spraying the flame. It's more like, fuck, I have no backup.
Power.
Yeah.
So Tomas is no longer with us.
R.I.P.
Yes. And Ree turns to the rest of the infantry and is pissed. She tells them, "This is why you don't fucking run."
Literally, they were warned and told, do not run, and they still fucking run. You deserve to die at that point.
Even the people who cross the parapet, their first instinct is to run. And I think that's so interesting because they know they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Maybe they think, oh, I cannot run this. But it's like, no, you can't unroute fire.
But even Tomas, you're so stupid. Why would you run after her?
Yeah.
What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, because technically she survived. She ran first and she survived because Tomas wasn't in the path.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So,
chapter 15, our first land nav is over, and they epically failed for the top squad in their year. Yeah. This elixir is cutting them off from their dragons, and Signet Powers is new this year. What in the world is leadership planning? Also, we missed Xaden because of this stupid exercise. Took up too much time. Pissed.
Yeah. So is Sigel and Taryn. And Violet.
Yeah.
So the epigraph for chapter 15 is, there's a course second year that I can't tell you about, other than to say that it's hell. My only advice, don't piss off anyone else's dragon. Page 96 of the Book of Brennan. Dang. Well, we could have used that advice in a couple chapters ago.
Yeah, she should have read that book like back to front the first year.
Yeah, before she
pissed
killed
off
Jack
Babe.
Barlow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, we find out from a beautiful summary that they failed their land navigation exercise, but they are still lost in the middle of the woods, so they don't really know that they actually failed yet. They're still like, fuck.
Yeah,
so we gotta just wait this out.
Yeah. So we knew from last chapter that they really weren't going to make it due to their mismatching maps and their inability to work together. It was like a little bit too late to put it all together. And they did run into a nether dragon, this time a red dragon, but thankfully a cow looked more tasty than their pathetic group who can't navigate the land.
Literally.
Yeah, the red dragon's
Thank you, cow.
But literally the red dragon probably looked at them and was like, what a group of pathetic people. They can't even navigate this land. I don't want that in my stomach.
Yeah.
Give me indigestion.
For real. We know that infantry don't die at the same rate as riders do, even though they're the biggest quadrant at Biscayeth. They have over 1,000 cadets, but obviously once they get into their units, the war will devour them at a much faster pace.
Yes.
They think the mixtures they drank has to wear off eventually, and if leadership leaves them out there, the dragons will eventually find them. So they're like, whatever, we just have to wait it out at this point. We're never going to fucking figure this out.
Yeah.
And something I thought was interesting here is Ree actually makes a comment about RSC and this exercise being cruel. She says, it's not like dragons are waiting behind enemy lines. And Violet says, you'd be surprised what's out there. So I feel like she wants to tell them so bad, but she's just like internally conflicted with, is this going to hurt them?
It's almost like it just slips out. She didn't even think before that came out of her mouth. But when Rhiannon questions her about this, Violet says, oh shit. She's like, well, you just never know what's out there.
Yeah, like not obvious at all, bitch.
Rhiannon, I think at this moment, fully knows that Violet is hiding something very important in the way that she's studying her. Violet sees that Rhiannon is studying her, and Violet's like, all right, well, let's move on from the thoughts about Rhiannon. And Violet also says that infantry carry survival gear at all times. Like, they may be deployed at any second. And Violet thinks that they have more than a few things that they can learn from each other. Violet is a very reasonable human being. I think if Riddick wasn't involved, I think they would have gotten through this land navigation exercise.
I know.
Because I feel like Rhiannon's a very reasonable person. Sawyer is a very reasonable person. So is Violet. So I find that it's interesting that they aren't getting along. And it really is Riddick who's not letting up the control. And he's not even in charge.
I also think, too, obviously they have so much of their training with the dragons, like 95% of it. I would say the only thing that they don't have is, the obstacle courses or like stuff like that. But most of their training is with the dragons. So if infantry doesn't have that, what the fuck do you think they're doing for 3 years? Obviously, they're going to have skills that you are not going to have. You just have to learn that that's the thing. You have a dragon and have skills that they don't have, and they have other skills that they have to fucking learn in 3 years.
Yeah.
While they're not learning about dragons, so.
But I also think Violet's on the right path. That they should all be carrying survival gear and be ready to go at all times, which they don't. They just walk around with their rider uniforms on, and that's it.
Yeah.
Rhiannon then calls Violet out on her BS. Rhiannon's had it, I think, at this point. They've been lost in the wood for a couple of days. They couldn't get along. They failed the exercise. So she's just...
They're hungry.
She's done.
Yeah.
So basically, this is what Rhiannon's gripe is with Violet. She's been avoiding talking about war games and Xaden and running with Imogen, avoiding her friends. Rhiannon says if she's not ready to talk, then that's all right. She will be there for her when she's ready because their friendship is precious to her. But she tells Violet, for the sake of their friendship, don't insult me by lying.
Ooh.
So Rhiannon is willing to be patient with Violet. She knows that something traumatic happened when they were at War Games, and she is perfectly fine in waiting for Violet to tell her what's going on. But she's sick of Violet avoiding her, and she's sick of being insulted by Violet lying.
Violet also was not happy about the way she found out about Venom. Do you want that to be your friends too? Like, just fucking fill them in at this point. So leadership finally arrives. Disappointed that they could not work together to get the job done, of course, but at least they're leaving the fucking woods.
As they were the top squads, Professor Grady is disappointed in them. He is glad to see that most of them made it out alive. R.I.P. Tomas. Professor Grady says that they will give them the supplies that they need next time. Oh, joy. They get to do this again.
Yeah, this is only exercise 1 of at least 2.
Yeah.
So they are reconnected to their dragons who come close, and infantry is like, oh shit, but you know, they're gonna have to get used to this. They will be even closer to them at the outpost once they're stationed, as riders and them are at the same outposts.
Yeah.
So after graduation, they're gonna be fucking seeing a lot of dragons. They better get used to it. But like, when else would they have seen a dragon so far? So that's also on Besgaiath.
Right. Well, I think this is the part. It's like your first year for infantry, you're learning your basic skills, and then now you're using those skills and putting them into real life situations, and now you're being introduced to the dragons now that you have basic survival skills.
But after this class, are they ever together again?
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to think that they are, because what are they doing in the 3rd year if this is what happens in the 2nd year?
Literally. I guess we don't know because Violet's not a 3rd year yet.
Yeah.
So Sawyer makes a good point about the elixir. If they just did it then, that means they can do it whenever they please. Leadership can give this to them whenever. So it's new this year, and Taryn could hear and sense Violet, but they actually could not reply to each other. So it's not completely erasing this bond for the dragon, at least.
Yeah. But why? This is just scary. I guess it's good to have them be able to survive not being attached to their dragons, but why is leadership creating this elixir?
Yeah.
So Rhiannon is convinced that something wonky is going on. The guarded doors, the elixirs, Violet almost being assassinated at assessment. Violet knows that keeping secrets is going to ruin their friendship. It's already pulling at the seams. Rhiannon is being patient, but it's in her nature to solve problems, and Violet is a huge one.
Yeah, I mean, she is a section leader, so let her be the section leader.
Yeah. Taryn did get to see Sigale for a few hours, but that was all the time he was willing to be out of range from Violet, especially with Bade in the mix. Xaden and Sigale are already gone, and Taryn says that they will see them in 7 days, but Violet's instincts are telling her that they won't.
Yeah. Do you think that Taryn was saying to Bade while all this was going down, because he probably still has a connection to Bade, because they can all talk to each other. Do you think he was like, you better fucking not touch her or you will die?
I mean, I guess he wouldn't even know that Bade was in front of Violet unless Bade was directly talking to Taryn. I don't think they just know what the other dragons are doing unless they touch on the connection. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think Bade knows not to fuck with Violet because of Taryn.
Yeah. I would be fucking scared of shit.
Because Bade could have bit her head off and she didn't, so.
True. It must have been some little discussion through the dragons there.
Yeah. I mean, because Taryn did say that he could feel Violet. He just couldn't talk to her. So if he
couldn't reply.
If he felt Violet's fear spike up or whatever, He was
then he
probably
would
like,
show up.
Bane,
Yeah. Yeah.
knock it off.
Yeah.
Chapter 16. It feels like we are getting no steps closer to finding what we need for the wards in Arisha. Sloane is still being a little biatch and a bad fighter, and Varish is still being a dick. Oh, and they kept Violet and Xaden apart again when she heads to Samara at the end of this chapter. What the fuck?
What the fuck, dude? I hate this set of chapters.
I hate it.
So the epigraph for chapter 16 is, my dad hoped I'd go into the infantry like he did. He thought riders were pompous pricks. And in his defense, we really are. This is from the recovered correspondence of Lieutenant Xaden Ryerson to Cadet Violet Sorrengail. I just love these letters.
Me too. Violet visits the archives again to research the wards when she gets back from land navigation. If she cannot see Xaden, she may as well do some studying.
Yeah, she's like, I'm going to solve one problem today if I can.
Yeah.
Violet tells Jasenia that rider who they saw being dragged away was actually killed and asks what text he was looking for. She actually tells her this time that he was looking for an account of a border attack that doesn't exist. She told him there was no such record, but he came back 3 times certain it happened because he said his family was killed in the event.
Oh.
She recorded the request and sent it up the chain of command, thinking that it would help him find.
So the brother
record.
totally knows why his brother was asking for that information, because his family was also killed, but wasn't killed because he was already in the Rider Squadron.
Exactly.
And clearly his brother was killed for asking for this information. So,
but does he know, or do you think the brother put it together that it was leadership that killed him, or do you think he just died from?
Yeah, he was literally being dragged away in the courtyard.
True, yeah. So a lot of people saw it. It wasn't just.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Crazy. So Violet comments that last year, Jasenia didn't record it when she asked for a book that wasn't in the archive's records. And Jasenia said that she didn't record it initially because she was embarrassed. She had decided to reach out to other libraries looking for a wider collection of folklore, implying it was a personal passion to collect folklore from border regions, which is so smart. Jasenia knows how to word things.
Yeah.
The responses she got made it clear that they didn't have the most comprehensive selection, however.
Yes. Jasenia realizes now that the archives are incomplete. There are books in existence that they have no record of, either by ignorance or intention. Intention.
I think Jasenia is slowly realizing that.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a hard realization for her, too, because her whole life has been the archives, just like Violet. So she's like, what? Incomplete? How?
This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Jasenia admits that she hasn't recorded any of Violet's requests and she would continue to help her, but she has to come on Saturdays when it's quiet. But she does ask for something in return. So later, Violet worries about Sloane during her mat challenges, and Violet, though, is confident that she will win. Violet pockets a letter from Xaden, and Violet also sees Aya in the room, and Aya and Violet have developed a new weird sort of relationship with each other since her almost burnout.
Yeah. So we actually learned from Xaden's letters that Aya's mother was active in the government in Tyranter, holding a council seat even though she was a rider. And we also learn here that it was uncommon since most of the aristocracy chose to serve in infantry because riders are discouraged from holding their family seats for 2 reasons. 1, a rider's commission is lifelong. Infantry can agree to only a few years. And 2, too much power in one person terrifies the king. So infantry only has to do a few years and then they're fine to run
their government.
Yeah. But also too much power is not okay to the king.
Well, yeah, because you imagine holding power in one area and having a signet power?
Yeah, I think he's worried just they could be more powerful than him.
Well, yeah, because he doesn't have a signet power.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Riddick mentions to our gang that Nolan, who couldn't even see an injured rider until after dinner, and there were only a handful of cadets in the infirmary. Him and an air wielder came out of a secret room, both looking haggard, so he is not doing his best work. He is working on a secret project with Varish.
Interesting. Who is draining our mender here?
What is Varish doing to our poor Nolan?
Literally. Violet is back on her poison game.
Hell
but
yeah.
Not for herself, for Sloane. She waits for Sloane's opponent, Dasha, to exhale. Then she opens her palms slightly and coughs hard. She used, I assume it's called Ardice powder, combined with an earlier dose of ground lily bell, and it disoriented someone for a minute or two, which gave Sloane the advantage that she needed to win.
Yes. So Sloane wins the challenge. Woo! And Violet tells Sloane that she did that for her brother and that she has several letters that Liam had written to her. So Sloane is like, I did that all on my own. And Violet's like, yeah, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
No.
Bitch.
Yeah. So,
but I love that she's going to give her the letters on these conditions.
Yeah. So Sloane is like, no, I'm not taking any help from you. You killed my brother. And Imogen is like, no. Literally, Violet saved Liam's life when he fell off of his dragon the first time.
Yeah.
Literally saved him.
Yeah.
So you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Like, she literally has had enough of Sloane being a brat.
Yeah, because she sucks and they're trying to keep her alive.
Yeah, and I think her friendship with Violet is developing too, where she slightly feels the need to defend her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Violet's like, I have several letters from Liam to give to you, but she will give Sloane one letter for every week that she trains with Imogen.
Love it. Yay.
Yay.
And she agrees, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
So the next day, Jacinia brings Violet the unabridged history of the first six, a 300-year-old text marked as classified, and Violet hands over the Fables of the Baron. This is what Jacinia asked her for, the Fables of the Baron. The book goes into detail of the interpersonal relationships of the first six, a little bit about their battle experience, but at the end of the day, it really wasn't helpful to Violet because it labels their enemy, General Darramore, and our alloys as the Isle Kingdoms, which interestingly enough, are not on our map. I looked. I'm like, Isle Kingdoms. So the Saturday after that, Violet gets the Sacrifice of Dragonkind by one of Kaori's predecessors, which I think is also a nod to him not knowing about the Venin because it wasn't Kaori that wrote this book. It was a predecessor of his. And it goes into detail about why they chose Basgiath as the location for the wards. Green dragons, especially from the Cruaid-Huian line, I have no idea how to pronounce that line, but that's my go at it.
Yeah.
Have a stable connection to magic, which some believe is why they are the most reasonable and defensive in nature. So it makes sense to choose Basgiath for this reason.
Yeah. Violet is off to Samara tonight, and she says nothing can ruin her evening because she will be seeing Xaden in the morning. Varys, though, shows up at her door and searches her belongings and questions why her squad didn't have flight maneuvers. So, thank God. Violet says that they've had some injuries from the running landing, so that is why they haven't been there. Varys says that he will have to meet in Darna next week then. When Violet flies to Samara, she finds out that Xaden has 24-hour duty in the operations center, so she cannot see him yet again.
Unbelievable. That better be the last chapter of this nonsense.
Chapter 17. We have more lying from leadership, but things have started ramping up soon, and I can't wait to see where this story goes next after these sets of chapters.
Me neither. I cannot wait. The last epigraph of our section for chapter 17 is, many historians choose to ignore the sacrifices made by both humans and dragonkind to establish Navarre under the First Wards in favor of praising the spirit of unification. But I would be remiss not to mention the losses suffered, both in terms of the ancestral hatching grounds of each dragon breed and the civilians who did not survive the continent-wide migration that resulted from the opening of Navarre's borders, or those lost when we closed them. Ooh. And this is from The Sacrifice of Dragonkind by Major Deandra Naveen.
Interesting.
Interesting indeed.
Yes. Also, I forgot to say, just going back to the previous chapter for a second, Varys wants to walk Violet to her dragon because of all the attacks that have been happening with her group from the war games. He's like, isn't that just so interesting? Dick. So Imogen is saying at the beginning of this chapter, Bodhi can't keep moving these flight maneuver lessons forever.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously everyone agrees, but for right now, it is working.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be able to avoid flight lessons forever, but it is a good tactic on Bodhi's end to help her. So I like Bodhi for doing this.
Yeah, as long as he can move them, it is helping because Andarna is still in her dreamless sleep and she is not ready to be showing up for Varish. And so to keep punishments away from Violet, Bodhi is doing all that he can. But obviously, it's not feasible that he does this,
forever.
or even for
The next
a
couple
couple
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah. You can only get away with this so much before they're like, okay, what the fuck's up? They haven't flown in 2 weeks now.
Yeah. Violet also thinks that leadership is keeping her and Xaden apart as punishment for not producing Andarna too. And she is walking to battle brief with Imogen, and Imogen tells Violet that everyone fails RSC the first time, that the instructors want them to feel bad about it, and it's working because Violet's like, this is going on and this is going on.
Yeah.
We couldn't even pass
Spiraling.
freaking RSC.
Yeah.
Imogen tells her she's been worried about how she's going to survive the interrogation portion of the RSC.
Yeah.
Not just about failing land nav.
Yeah.
Imogen also tells Violet that she is lying to herself if she thinks she wants to be with someone normal. Imogen also tells Violet to stop ignoring her friends, even if Xaden told her not to be around them until she can lie to them. Clearly, that is not always the best approach. And Violet is proof of that. And so I love that Imogen is like, I'm giving you until we get into battle brief to complain about Xaden, and that's all you get.
Just that's it, and no further discussion once we get there.
Yeah. She's like, I'll be your girly friend.
Yeah.
For 5 seconds.
I think also this is Imogen's way of telling her that she can trust her friends, Maybe this approach works for Xaden, but it doesn't mean it's the only approach.
Yeah, and obviously Imogen's pointing out it didn't work for you. Xaden's approach, clearly look what happened.
Yeah.
I think she also is, you guys are, they're gonna want to keep you guys apart. Like alone, like you're scary. Together, you're a fucking menace. Like you are, you two together is scary for leadership. And she's like, you need to fucking figure your shit out because Xaden loves you. You love Xaden. Like Xaden's writing you letters. Like he barely wants to talk to people and he's writing you love notes. Figure it out.
Even Imogen's like, we know you're going to take him back. What the fuck is the holdup?
Yeah. And she's like, I'm sick of these conversations too.
Yeah.
Can you please be friends with Rhiannon again?
She's like, just tell her everything so I don't have to hear about Xaden.
Yeah. And, Imogen points at Rhiannon when they get to battle brief, who looks very concerned. And so Violet approaches Rhiannon because she looks so upset.
Yeah. And Rhiannon's parents received a letter, we find out, with something circulating in their village, basically telling the villagers not to take in strangers and that their kindness could kill. Interesting. So obviously she tells Violet about this and that her parents' shop is actually booming right now since they moved another company of infantry into Montserrat. But Violet realizes that this means that their post is more than capacity.
It's crazy.
So there's lots of people there and now they're getting these weird ass don't let strangers in. What is going on?
Yeah. Who are these strangers?
Yeah. So Markham finds the letter. I forget how.
No, he literally rips it out of Violet's hands.
I was gonna say, I think they're just talking about it and he walks by and
grabs
steals
it.
Yeah. So he brings the letter to Battle Brief's attention and tells them that it's a regional notice, so it does not carry a public announcement number. Basically saying, oh, this didn't come from actual leadership, which we know is all bullshit lies.
But who's in the region that writes these letters?
Yeah, I don't know. So there have been an alarming amount of attempted border attacks at their most strategic outposts, but this is dangerous, this missive that is being passed around this village, because we can't know their intentions, the intentions of these strangers who are coming into these villages.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why they keep their borders closed in the first place. But Violet is thinking, when exactly did they close their borders? When they were unified, or was it closer to 400 years after unification when she thinks history was wiped from the books?
Yeah. Interesting.
That is something. So a third year thinks that it could be a new tactic to infiltrate their outposts under false pretenses. According to Markham, what's more disturbing is the propaganda Poramish people bring with them. Falsified announcements from their own leadership that cities were destroyed by violent attacks from dragons. Markham says they had compassion, though, eye roll, and authorized classified missions to check out the cities. They have reported back that the cities inside Poramil are actually intact, so they think the same as the third year, that it's just a new play on their compassion. He says, lies are powerful tools.
Yeah, no shit, lies are powerful tools.
Yeah, first of all, if somebody's going in for a classified mission, which I don't even think is happening, I think they're just saying they sent people and the cities are okay, because who's going to go to Port Mill to check?
Yeah.
No one. No one's leaving
No
the
one's
bar.
going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're just obviously lying here.
Yeah, to cover their lies.
Yeah. And I think Violet, you know, she's getting pissed and pissed and pissed as he's talking. The more he says, the more pissed she's getting. So
because she knows he's lying.
Yeah. So she's coming to the realization too, this motherfucker knows.
Yeah, these cities are being destroyed, not by dragons, obviously, but by Wyvern. And we know their cities are being destroyed. Look, just she knows Reston was destroyed.
Yeah.
So of course she knows that these Pormish people are not lying when they're coming for safekeeping behind the wards.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So Violet leaves class and she loses control of her powers because she's just so angry at the lies that they're being told.
Yeah.
Rhiannon is for sure worried about her now, but she tells Rhiannon she will be fine, and she's fine, but she'll be late to RSC. And Rhiannon's like, do you think that this is a class that you should be late for?
Of all the classes, RSC is not the one to be late for.
Yeah, but Violet is literally having a panic attack. She literally can't breathe, and so she runs and barges into the one place where she can get herself back under control, which is the archives. But she does make a scene because they're actually in a meeting when she gets in there. And she's not supposed to be there. But thankfully, Jasenia talks to her and calms everyone down and says that she will bring her a new selection of tomes tonight. And she warns Violet that she can only meet her on Saturdays or she's going to get them both caught.
Yeah, she's like, bitch, don't fucking come here unless it's Saturday. What are you doing? But Jasenia talks her way out of it, thankfully.
She can, who isn't going to trust Jasenia, honestly? Literally. But she can be like, Violet's having a fucking mental breakdown right now. But that's what's happening. You know, Violet, I think, was in her right state of mind. She never would have just barged in there, but she's literally having a panic attack.
Well, I think, too, there's a connection made with her mind and controlling the shields in her mind by grounding in the archive. So I think she physically thought putting her there would ground her, but really it's not the same thing as in her brain. So.
Yeah. And it's luckily not safe for her to be doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's the end of our section for today. So
that's it.
Hopefully we get more Xaden and Violet interactions in the next
section. Even if they're arguing at this point, I just need more Xaden in the chapters.
Yeah, for sure. But I feel like it's getting serious now. Like we're getting little Easter eggs about what teachers are involved or who we think is involved, and something big's gonna happen soon. I can feel it.
I think we're only like 26% through this book after those chapters.
I think so. I think you're right. We have 9 episodes of Iron Flame, so this is only episode 2. We have a lot more to dive into. But
we're just building and building and building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for now, that's all we have for you today. Please let us know what you think by leaving us a review and comments on any of the platforms you are listening/watching on or on our social media pages. This helps tremendously to get the word out and lead more listeners to find our show and tune in.
Yes, don't forget to email, follow, subscribe, and rate us 5 stars and tell all your friends about us. And we hope the rest of your day is blissful. Bye!
Thank you so much for listening. Join us next week where we start part 3 of Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, covering chapters 18 through 26. Happy reading!